Greetings, everyone. Welcome to a very special Brony Debates Live. I hope you're all doing well out there. We're going to have a rockin' Saturday here, getting started at a special time because we got a lot going on. We're going to settle this debate in the Brony fandom once and for all. Is Starlight Glimmer better or worse than Sunset Shimmer? Now, this has been going on since Starlight Glimmer made her appearance. Everybody's been comparing her to Sunset Shimmer, saying she's not as good. So I had to go out and find some Starlight Glimmer fans. Obviously, one of Starlight's biggest detractors is Princess Heather Blossom, who's with us tonight. And we also got one of Sunset Shimmer's biggest fans in Shady Oak Ministries, who's with us tonight. And they're going to be talking about that, and we're going to be balancing and counterpointing, and we're going to put this to bed once and for all, which one is better. So let's go down the line here and get introductions out of the way. Joining us for the first time on Brony Debates is Mr. Someone. Mr. Someone, how are you doing? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me here. I'm here to defend the objectively best reformed unicorn in My Little Pony. Yeah, I'm a big Starlight fan. I run a podcast, another podcast with some friends called the Out of Our Mains podcast. Which, have you heard of it? If not, check it out. And I do
I did link it in the description. Everybody is highly encouraged to go check it out. I've listened to a couple. You guys are pretty funny.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we do our best, so.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you on. We got DJ joining us tonight. DJ, how are you doing, and whose side are you on?
My foot hurts, and I'm with Starlight, of course.
Your foot hurts? What did you do to it?
I ended up tripping over it when seeing Godzilla last weekend, and I kind of sprained it, and it's still kind of messed up.
Jeez, get some
nice
heat
and
on
blue.
that thing.
You were so
Godzilla X
shocked
Kong
at
or Godzilla -1?
Were you so shocked about the Starlight Glimmer cameo on it that you started breakdancing and fell?
Yeah, that's exactly
Actually,
how I
the movie's
react.
kind of mid.
So, Shady, what was your question?
Was it Godzilla -1 or Godzilla X Kong?
Godzilla and Kong.
I saw a clip on
was
that.
okay.
I saw a clip on that at Twitter of Kong grabbing another gorilla by the ankle and using it as a nunchuck, and that was,
oh my gosh,
that was ridiculous.
That's worth the whole price of admission right there.
Who else we got here? We got Editz Khun joining us. Editz also on the blue team. So here's how if you look at the thumbnail, guys, you'll notice there's kind of a red team and a beige team, or no, a blue team and a beige team, and the blue team is for Starlight. So, Khun, how are you doing tonight?
It's been a long week, but I'm here to talk about how Glim Glam is the best pony in the unicorndom.
All right.
Amen.
And then we've got on the beige team, Shady Oak Ministries, who's here for Sunset. How are you doing today, sir?
Talk about Sunset Shimmer, aka the Apostle Paul pony. I'm doing great.
The Apostle Paul. Yeah, that's something Mr. Someone, Shady Oak here, is his channel is Shady Oak Ministries. He used to do My Little Pony Bible studies, and they were pretty awesome. Yep. So
fascinating.
Do you know anything about the Bible, Mr. Someone?
I do. I am a Christian myself. So,
Okay, yeah. So am I, and so is DJ. I don't know about. I'm still trying to pull Heather over, and I don't know what Khun thinks about anything. So.
This is all about conversion. I knew it. This is a cult. He seduced me in.
Uh-oh. All right, guys.
It
I'll
was
see
Christian
myself out.
propaganda the whole time.
So yeah. Okay. So yeah, you probably get what he's saying with the Apostle Paul there, Heather. How do you feel about, are you fully in the Sunset camp, or do you just want Starlight to lose?
I do want Starlight to lose because her bangs, whack.
Her beats are
Her
pretty good. What are you
motivations,
talking about?
whack. Backstory, whack. Plan, whack. Cult, whack. Redemption, shit.
Well, I personally really like her main, so
Yeah, her main's pretty good, especially her reformed
I
main.
liked
No.
it better when she had, like, when she was a villain, she had the straight bangs, but then they did the swoop bang and it makes her head look weird. I don't like those bangs.
Oh,
Now,
I do
let
see
me
your
let me
point.
tell you about the origin of this particular live stream here, is that Heather made a video that's on her channel talking about how bad Starlight is, and
there was plenty of stuff that prompted that video.
yeah, Starlight has always been a sore spot for Heather, and you know, the more she trash talked on Starlight, the more I had to think about Starlight, and then I came to the realization of, Starlight, I don't think Starlight is as bad as she's making it out to be. I actually think Starlight had the best and most realistic villain redemption in the whole show. So I'm not, I do like Sunset better, like, as a character, as an aesthetic. She's probably a little bit more nostalgic to me, but objectively, so I'm not in any sort of camp really, but objectively speaking, from a storytelling standpoint, I'm more, I think Starlight had better character development. So I went out and I tried to balance this as much as possible. I actually did not think I was going to find as many Starlight fans, because in my experience with the fandom, there are way more, like, absolutely rabid Starlight haters, and everybody just on their knees for Sunset. But yeah, it turned out we got a huge thing here, and I do need to make a public apology to Rusty Heraldy. He's in the chat. He wanted to be on the debate as well, and we initially set up this debate like a couple of months ago, and things just kept coming up, and in that time I forgot, and I'm very, very sorry, and I feel really bad. However, there is an audience participation segment later on where I will give you the permission to call in, and if anybody here missed a point that you want to make, that'll be your time to make it, Rusty. So please, I beg your forgiveness. Now then, we're very grateful to everybody who supports the channel, especially those on the $10 and up tier. If you'd like to be on the show, we'd love to have you. $1 on Patreon. Check my link tree in the description. $10 and up tier. Heather, who's with us. Shady, who's with us. DJ, who's with us. There's also Autoknight, Emerald Spencer, Senko, Rein-Kun, Billy, Alden, Easy Mode, Kanto, Mr. Sonic, Alicia, Calbeck, StarChaser, VentureCorp, Willie's in, Icanus, Vulpecula, Raptors Talon, Jimmy, and Malcontent. Check out their the patron link tree, because a lot of those guys are really good content creators as well. So let's start with opening arguments here now, 15 minutes into the stream. Heather, who is better, Starlight or Sunset, and why?
I would say Sunset Shimmer is better, and I'll get into why. I'm going to start with the positives here. Sunset Shimmer, for number one, aesthetically speaking, just a way better color palette, and it's different because in this show of Technicolor ponies, there's just a lot of purple ones. I've gone into discussions with a few people, and they're just like, yeah, there's a lot of purple ponies in this, but you know what there's not a lot of is like oranges and reds. You see it a little bit with Applejack's family, but I really liked how it came together for Sunset Shimmer. The streaks in her hair, you can call her like ketchup and mustard hair, bacon hair, but it looks good. It looks good. And she didn't get like dumb redemption bangs like freaking Starlight Glimmer did. Yeah, she came with already her hair looking good. She was always on top of, like, you know, the iconic outfits. She had like every new movie where she had to wear different clothes. She had a great outfit every single time. Even like the outfit she started out with was just really, really good.
Well, I need to stop you right here
continue.
real quick. Real quick, just to point out that I cannot believe you're starting this debate with pony racism.
Yeah, that's
That's not
Based on-
racism. I haven't
based
even got
on the
into the fact
color?
that she's a unicorn.
Based on the color of the skin.
Colorism.
And-
Yeah, what's wrong- what's wrong with
Oh,
purple?
yeah, it
what's
is
wrong with
colorism.
purple?
I will say that's colorism. It's not racist. It's what color you are, is it what race you are. But
It ain't
whatever.
easy being
Anyways,
green.
let's move on from the aesthetics because clearly y'all can't handle me. I'm too raw.
So let's move on further from the racism and on to sorry.
On to the next
Oh,
specimen.
I would like to go into her motivations. She seemed just like, if we go into her origin comic, she seemed just overly ambitious, and that boiled over into something else. And I think that's just a way more fascinating reason to be a villain than what freaking Starlight Glimmer has, which is like, got cucked by a cutie mark because my friend left me. That was the only thing that ever went wrong in her life, according to her. Now, if she got into like why that affected her like that, maybe it would have been different. But we can see from Sunset Shimmer, she was just overly ambitious and wanted to like be at the top of a food chain. I guess eventually she went to high school and was like, I guess I'll start here. I don't know what the plan was there, admittedly. That first movie left a lot to be desired.
Become a
But
high
she
school
got
musical.
pretty dang far. And I think her redemption was a lot better. She was a lot more of like a sympathetic individual. Like you felt for her. You were kind of in her position. Everyone like just acting like she wasn't there, acting like she was freaking. I think that's what makes her better for me, is that it feels like her actions had consequences. People didn't trust her immediately. People didn't warm up to her right away, and it felt very ostracizing for a while. You didn't get that with Starlight Glimmer. Like, everyone immediately tried to like sew her into the fabric of their their residence, and it just felt like too much. I'm like, nah, guys, I know we get like you want to lead this with open arms, but that isn't exactly the safest thing. Like, you gotta. That's what felt unrealistic to me, is that people were so trusting with letting Starlight Glimmer in just like that. That's just not smart. That's just not safe.
But it
Everyone
worked out.
gave
It worked
Can I-
out,
throughout,
though.
everyone gave Sunset Shimmer they gave her arm's length distance. They tried to slowly let Sunset Shimmer in. Starlight, they just like let it in all in too quickly. They were all just like, yeah, immediately trust her with everything. Immediately just let her in. She's just one of us. She's one of the kids. She's one of the girls.
And to back you up
I
on
did
that
know.
one, Heather,
Can
not
I-
only that, but even when she would routinely screw it up throughout of season 6, they were just like, it's okay. I can I don't know.
Well,
Go for
can I
it.
ask
Yeah,
one
it's-
question? And I
Yeah.
can elaborate further, but I just want to ask you one question. So, Heather, you have
Yeah.
seen season 6, correct?
Season 6 of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Yes, I've seen all the seasons.
Okay, so you have seen the episode Every Little Thing She Does.
Hold on, I gotta remember which one that is.
That is the one where, actually, I have the episode description pulled up right here. Starlight Glimmer is excelling at her magical studies with Twilight Sparkle, but she has been avoiding her friendship lessons. Trying to impress her teacher, Starlight attempts to tackle several friendship problems. I believe it's like using
That was the one where
magic
she
as a-
brainwashed everybody.
Yes.
Which, what the fuck?
Okay, so you
Fascinating.
don't remember that episode very well.
Oh no, I remember it well. Yeah, I remember that because that's usually a point. Like, she literally used brainwashing because she couldn't handle all these people at once. Instead of like taking a minute, being like, okay, maybe I should do this one at a time, because these are all ponies we know to be reasonable, and would be like, hey, yeah, okay, you need a minute. She automatically went to like, I'm gonna brainwash everybody, and then gave everybody a hangover. And then after that, they were like, yeah, you kind of fucking suck, but also maybe we'll forgive you.
I don't think that's exactly how it went. At the
Well,
end,
remember.
at least.
It was a learning
From-
experience.
From what I recall, they were incredibly hesitant to forgive her after that, and were like, yeah, no, you did kind of a screwed up thing. So we don't exactly 100% trust you. Like, we'll move on from this, but like, understand that was screwed up. I think
I feel
Starlight
like we
has...
need to have
I
the
think-
dialogue in front of us again, because that's highly dependent on what they said. Because I feel like they all acted angry for a minute, but then they were still kind of fucked up and begrudging, but they were still like, hey, we forgive you. We're all still
I saw
friends.
I
And
saw
I'm like,
Shady.
I'm not saying you shouldn't eventually, but I feel like more should have been said.
I saw
The
Shady
episode
try to say
ended,
something real.
actually.
So Shady, what
Yeah,
what
go
did
for
you
it.
Shady? What did you try to say?
Well, in bringing up that episode, it serves to both of your points because, yes, in the episode, there is an example of Starlight realistically being reformed from the perception of other people, and that suffices to address Heather's argument in asking, okay, was she accepted realistically or not? But it also serves to Heather's point in saying in a 20-minute window, her falling back on her old pattern, the method she used in our town, for altruistic motives was not responded to appropriately. So it serves as a both and, not an either or, in addressing Starlight being handled kind of sloppily.
That's a good point right there.
The episode ends with I actually have the transcript here. The episode ends with them essentially going through a, let's see. Where is this? Okay.
Can I say that Sunset Shimmer didn't have a backpedaling moment like this? Like, the worst we saw her act like a little too, ballsy or whatever was when she saw that Rainbow Dash was almost about to pony up and she tackled her to the ground to stop it. But that was because it was like a freaking heat of the moment thing. It had to be dealt with right that moment. And yes, maybe it wasn't the most appropriate response, and they called her on that. And if you ask me, they kind of overreacted to it a little bit. But I'd say that's a few scotches down from literally brainwashing 6 people.
So you think that a character falling back on old bad habits is bad character? Right? I'm not saying that. Do not put words in my mouth. I'm saying when Sunset Shimmer had a bit of a backpedal, it wasn't nearly as bad, and it was responded to realistically. And maybe they even overreacted to it a little bit. I'm just saying Sunset Shimmer didn't have as many trips and falls as Starlight did. Because on top of the freaking brainwashing the main 6 for a day, you remember when she sold freaking Trixie's actual domicile, her wagon, her trailer that she takes to the trailer park? She sold that without permission while her friend was sleeping outside in the middle of the night in a foreign country. Remember when Rainbow Dash sold Fluttershy to someone?
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, that was fucked up. You want me to get started on Rainbow Dash? I don't like her either.
Yeah, right.
Okay, at least we can agree there.
One moment. The argument is scope. In the severity of Starlight's actions, the equal and opposite reaction didn't fit the bill. For Sunset, when she backslid, and a non-My Little Pony example would be like with Prince Zuko, there was a multiple episode recovery from his falling back on his old Fire Nation ways. For Starlight, as opposed to Sunset, it ultimately stands or falls on whether the punishment fits the crime or even the emotional reaction to said fallback fits what was needed in order to redeem her.
I would argue that the show doesn't have... How do I put it exactly? My Little Pony is a slice of life show versus Avatar, which is a story progression show. And while My Little Pony has character, in there. Yes, there are.
And My Little Pony even coexist.
Yes, it does. But the main focus of the show is on the problem of the episode, sort of thing. It's more of a Saturday morning cartoon versus Avatar, which is technically when it was releasing, it was a Saturday morning cartoon, but it was a show that you couldn't just jump in and watch an episode offhandedly.
Start from the beginning with it, yeah.
Doing character progression and whatnot in My Little Pony is very important, and I think Starlight is one of, if not the best examples of that throughout the show, seeing her character progress and eventually overcome a lot of her, not fully overcome her shortcomings, she's still a flawed character, obviously, but change and grow as a person, I think in one of the best ways in the show. Maybe Rarity is up there. Fluttershy is relatively high up there as well. But in my opinion, Starlight's is the best in terms of a realistic progression of a human being.
So I want to move on a little bit here. Let's go over to DJ now. DJ, who is better and why?
I would definitely lean more on Starlight Glimmer. I think she's a much more interesting character because she does stumble far more than Sunset. Sunset quickly was able to take on basically becoming the de facto leader of her group post her reformation, while Starlight has always been relegated to support. And I think that makes for some more interesting character dynamics, since Sunset had to just jump right into things. Starlight has the chances to where she can have the stumbles, like every little thing she does, or be put in situations where she isn't confident, like the season 6 finale.
Interesting. And what do you guys think about that?
I agree.
Yeah, I can't really give much.
By the same
I might
token,
give-
I would say that that's something that Sunset has over Starlight, is that Sunset could be trusted in that right away. Like if because she
Like,
had
you don't
leader,
want Starlight Glimmer to lead,
yeah,
because
she had
last time she did.
well,
That doesn't make
what-
things interesting.
What we saw in season 6 in To Where and Back Again is that she can lead, just probably in a smaller capacity. But Sunset always had the leadership qualities. She was just too power hungry and didn't really understand the purpose of, like, why it's important to be a leader and what really goes into that outside of the power. And when Sunset had her reformation, it's like, okay, now I have this talent for leadership, and I know how to properly utilize it to help the people around me. Starlight cannot and never should try to lead any large group of people again. Now she's in charge of the school, but that's after she learned how to delegate. We had a whole arc in season 8 about that. Starlight didn't have nearly as much talent as Sunset did, and therefore needed to learn if she was going to be put in that position.
See, that's
And
the thing. That's what makes her interesting.
Exactly. I think that's a point for Starlight. I think she had to grow, and that's what makes a character interesting.
Well, regardless of if you have talent or not, like even if you have talent, doesn't affect your ability to do a lot of things, or at least to certain degrees. Talent mostly affects how fast you learn something, and so that's still to say that Sunset needed to learn and definitely had an arc in the rest of the Equestria Girls where she took on different aspects of the teacher role and the leadership role in each one and built on the last. So she still learned, but she got there a lot faster because ultimately she was a lot more trustworthy than Starlight.
Well, she didn't really have a whole lot of chances to fail either. She only got movies, which is a failing of how the stories had to be told. But since
I'm gonna try
Starlight
to
within the
stray
show,
away from
she was
meta
given more.
things.
Yeah,
Well,
and even so, and even in a meta perspective there, the shorts showed her with a huge learning curve, basically trying to figure out how magic worked and taking responsibility for magic being in that world when it hadn't
That's
been
not really in
before.
relation to her character development, though. That's more of her goal.
Okay,
Isn't
are
it,
we
though?
talking about are we debating on which is a better character in a a character in a story, or the better moral power etc. person in their world?
I feel like the idea is through.
I
moral
don't
power.
see how those are separate concepts.
I think they are.
Very
because-
easily. That's why people find villains so far more interesting characters.
Yeah, like
Whether they're
Villains-
moral or not has nothing
villains-
to do whether if they're the better character.
yeah,
in
villains
general.
can be great
Well,
characters. but
my
terrible
ultimate
people.
point was
don't have to
Starlight
do
or Sunset still had to learn and was still interesting because of that, as well as just the nature of the challenges that she had. So she was still as interesting as Starlight, while also being way less annoying.
I think that I think it is important to acknowledge the meta contexts of certain things. For example, I think a big reason why a lot of people didn't like Starlight for the longest time. Most people I've met who got into the show later ended up liking Starlight a lot more. Like people who sat down and watched through the series ended up liking Starlight more. And I think that's because her introduction wasn't... I don't think her introduction as a main character in like the season 5 finale was very good as like a reformed character, because you have that whole montage of her like immediately getting along with everyone, and like I'm not a big fan of that being there. It had a decent song with it, but I think it gave a lot of people the impression of like, oh, she's gonna be the main character now, and everything is immediately forgiven, and she's just immediately perfect, you know? But as we saw through, and then every little thing she does also kind of put a bit of a bad taste in everyone's mouths. I didn't like Starlight a whole lot when she was first introduced. But as season 7 started going on, and we got to see more of how Starlight's brain works and what makes her tick, it makes you realize, oh, this is someone who has PTSD, anxiety, depression, probably autism, like a lot of the characters in the show. But especially in her case, I think a lot of her actions and whatnot, because I do agree that her like backstory and reasoning for why she became a cult leader is a little bit out there. But
dumb. You can say it's dumb.
It was extreme. It was extreme, I would say.
But one, this is a kids show.
No,
we don't know.
Do that.
We don't use that.
Don't
We don't
do
use that argument in this
Avatar: The
dojo.
Last Airbender is a kids show, but it's still objectively a good show. Don't say that shit.
Yeah, come on, don't bite the guest head off.
We're here for context, not for just going for that.
Yeah. I'm not saying that like that it's that, oh, they should get away with like things being bad and whatnot, but I'm saying that her backstory was incredibly simple and easy to understand for a young kid, because I think her backstory being that way is that way because it's relatable to a lot of kids. Not, becoming a cult leader literally, but again, it's an exaggeration of certain things.
I'm glad you put in there for a kid to understand, because I was about to say, really? Because I found it flabbergasting. Like, I could not understand how you went from A to B with that line of logic, Starlight.
Now, so yes, I agree that it is an extreme reaction. But I think it also is, it's important to take both the meta context and the character context, where like I mentioned, she clearly has some issues. And I've mentioned anxiety, like social anxiety, autism, like having extreme reactions like that to seemingly menial things are very common in people who struggle with things like that.
Yeah, even in adulthood too.
Like Twilight had her whole manic episode in Lesson 0, and we as the viewers and even her her friends viewed that as going way overboard and way over the top. To her though, it was an incredibly big deal. But the whole lesson of that episode was not don't overreact to little things. The lesson was for her friends to show sympathy and essentially recognize that it's a problem. Yes, acknowledge that yes, this is a little thing, but be empathetic essentially. Starlight didn't have that.
She had no friends, basically.
My argument.
Yeah, she had nobody to back you up on this one, Mr. Someone. Starlight didn't have, she lost her friend when she was early on, and that hurts kids when that happens. Shoot, I went through something similar recently, and it did a whole lot of damage to me, and I'm a grown frickin' man. If you don't have somebody to help you through that, it's going to do a lot of damage. Starlight did not have someone who could help her through that, and she was a kid, so it did a lot of damage. And furthermore, her father, the king of stagnation and social anxiety and overprotectiveness, right? So at no point in time did Starlight ever have the facilities in her developmental years to learn how to handle things like this, and thus, like, I don't know. I like blaming people for their own actions, but when we met Starlight's father, a whole lot of stuff started making a whole lot more sense.
I mean, that one episode put in a lot of the extra puzzle pieces we needed. She grew up alone with no other friends, fell into a deep depression, which turned into emo nature as we saw her room, and a father that does not support any kind of growth whatsoever. She was destined to go nuts.
Yeah, she was like a sugar boner or something.
I have met
all the
so
wrong
many
pieces
people.
fell in place for her development.
I have met so many people that went through the same exact thing as Starlight Glimmer in my life, and they have all turned out like Starlight Glimmer, and they're still out there towning everything up and down because they've never had a Twilight come and kick the frick out of them for being that way. That's what that. I'm gonna move on now, though, if that's okay, because I haven't heard from Shady very much. Yeah, go ahead, Heather.
I like Starlight's dad. I like dads that are nice.
That's true.
He is nice.
He's just too nice. That's his problem.
Yeah,
that's his problem. He's too nice. But yeah.
Probably and bordering on an enabler, but it's
totally.
Yeah. So anyway.
I am also a sucker for nice dads in shows.
I've never had a nice dad, yeah.
They're a rarity.
What the fuck?
I had
we can't listen to a therapy session.
This got deep.
I had a very nice dad. Shady, who is better and why?
Well, in my olive branch to the Starlight Glimmer fans, my full intention in this debate was actually to have a one-on-one with Heather and take your position just to annoy her.
Hell yeah, let's go.
Why do you do this to me? Why do you guys hate me?
I feel bad. This is going to turn into dogpiling. I'm sorry, Heather. I have nothing against you as a person.
It's fine. Yeah, I can take all of you. I got the rage in me.
That's what I thought at first. Like, there's way too many people against Heather here, and then I just rehear her vehemency. Is like, nope, this is completely fair.
I find it.
I got so much going on here.
It's fun bickering.
Heather's about to pull an Optimus Prime from the second live-action Transformers movie. I'll take you all on.
Oh, don't remind me. That being said, Sunset Shimmer is objectively the best character for reasons I'll lay out as briefly as I can. The criteria I have for a best character would be, first, consistency, the quality of message, representation of her historical inspiration, opinion though it may be, and the real-life application of their lessons. So when we talked about before inconsistency, Starlight's failures and steps taken to ask for and receive restoration were and weren't extreme. I'd call that inconsistent. For example, Sunset chose to pursue power and abused it in scope of a school where lives were ultimately threatened. That was the peak of her abuse of power. Starlight's abuse of power targeted psyches, the concept of free will, and ultimately the space-time continuum, where, of course, several wars were started. Now, where Sunset had to seek restoration by, within the first film, being handed farming, or basically a construction equipment, and repairing the concrete and bricks she damaged with telekinesis, and developing relationships from a position of vulnerability rather than being given the benefit of the doubt, Starlight, of course, would show an inconsistent pattern. We're not saying the pattern isn't there. This has already been discussed, but we want to make sure our terms are being clarified. The scope is inconsistent as far as the abuse and the restoration. The second point I'd make for a good character is quality of message. When we're talking about quality, of course, I mean quality as opposed to quantity. Sunset and Starlight, I will argue, in, again, good faith to the Starlight fans, are both telling a story of redemption. But Sunset told the exact same story effectively in 4 films as opposed to 4 seasons. And I, as a teacher of junior hires and high schoolers, know that the most effective message is the one that can be given clearly and briefly. I think that she's a better character because you can show the lesson in less time. I think there is a quality that shows where Starlight needed more quantity, and as a result ended up missing out on some more to-the-point illustrations as opposed to fluff. Again, that's set an opinion. The third is the representation of historical inspiration. I personally believe, and I talk about this in my videos, that Sunset Shimmer and Starlight Glimmer are both phenomenal illustrations of the life of the Apostle Paul, formerly a murderer and a persecutor of Christians, when he discovered that, of course, Jesus of Nazareth really did rise from the dead, that he was the Messiah. He was not only quick to recognize, I'm here on the side of truth, not my emotions. Who are you, Lord, that I may serve you? And he said, I am Jesus whom you are persecuting. Big oops moment. It took 3 years for him in isolation to finally grasp what the message of Judaism really was, despite, like Starlight and Sunset, being students under the most famed rabbi of the time, that being Rabbi Gamaliel. Like Sunset and Starlight, when they sought restoration from the main characters, Paul the Apostle's approach towards Peter and others, according to the book of Acts and his recap in the book of Galatians, all emphasized the point that they focused on the fact that the one who formerly persecuted us now preached the faith, and they glorified God in me. The restoration was motivated not by the fact that, well, they deserve it. Of course, there's grace due to both individuals, but the fact that there was a legitimate work of life change being done to him, and it furthered the message of friendship, which is what the show is all about. Likewise, when it came to the scope, both Starlight and Sunset were seeking to kill their detractors in more of a bizarre concept on the latter. But the point of emphasis is you have someone who is seeking the worst possible fate for somebody. Their passion was so direct that it turned them into literal monsters in more ways than one. But that restoration was equally as dramatic when someone who is so handed over to their evil is brought back to the light. That is a fantastic message, but I think that Starlight illustrated even further because she was the most direct. She didn't have to explore all of these various examples or illustrations of it. This is what was done wrong, this is what was done to make right, and this is how she showed just how right that correction was. And then lastly, the real-life application of their lessons. I've talked about it briefly, but the point of emphasis is when kids are supposed to be watching this, or even adults are supposed to be watching this, and applying it to their real-life situations. Obviously, the more fanciful we get, the more difficult it's going to be to say, you know how Starlight broke the space-time continuum? I think that's how you should view me when it comes to me breaking the window. I think that we can both just ultimately move on from this. No, but if there is, in fact, harm done in a relationship, if there's legitimate guilt and remorse in a relationship, and restoration is sought, as again, even in marital counseling, the definition of character is proven character over time. Starlight's advantage is that she has more time to show that redemption, but Sunset, I believe, was more to the point in the character traits you look for in order to show legitimate repentance, a legitimate heart and mind change. So Sunset, because of the brevity in which she did not need to be exposed as much or contribute to the story, she told her story and then essentially moved on, not because she was an unwanted character, but because her character was so effective in showing a straightforward story. I think that she's the better character because you can tell it more briefly, because she is more consistent in how ultimately she saw that redemption, that the quantity and quality both speak for themselves, that she is a lot easier for me to illustrate with the Apostle Paul and make scriptural references, and that, of course, she is the main character in my all-time favorite study, and that was in Rainbow Rocks, two of which are opinions, but I'd be happy to be cross-examined on those points.
All right.
That went biblical, didn't it?
Yes, that's what we do when Shady comes on. Mr. Someone, what do you think about all that? Oh, did we lose him?
Uh-oh. Is he there?
No, I am a little lost though.
Did I just blow your mind?
So, okay. How do I approach this exactly?
It kind of sounded like Shady was coming from a meta perspective.
Yes, definitely.
And I think a meta perspective is fine. I do think that there are areas where they do mirror all, because he's the redemption story, but I don't know if so on one hand, I don't I consider myself a disciple of Jesus. I live my life by what he taught, or I at least try to.
Minds have been blown.
And I will say, though, I don't... How do I put this, I guess? I don't think that they were, meant to be, I don't think that those stories were directly inspired by,
I stand opinion.
But I think there are a lot of, parallels to call from that. But I don't really have a rebuttal in terms of, how well one or the other mirrors Paul, because I haven't really thought about that a whole lot.
Here's a
personally.
question I have for Shady. What exactly... So are you saying that Sunset is better because... Sunset's story is better because her arc was more brief? Is that
Yes.
a good way to summarize? Okay. And is that an opinion, or can you back that up empirically? What about
I think
a brief...
numbers are the most straightforward.
What about brevity makes it... The brevity makes Sunset's story better?
Quality over quantity. The more effective and the more straightforwardly you can communicate the same message, the brief message will, of course, be more readily received by the most amount of people.
And that's probably why we tend to see more Sunset fans than Starlight fans. But Mr. Someone or anybody on the blue team, rather, that might be something that you can latch onto for a counterpoint if you want.
Okay, so my counterpoint is going to be pretty straightforward. Sunset Shimmer, short-lived. That's the way I see it. That's what my eyes saw on the screen. Starlight Glimmer got more seasons. Starlight Glimmer, more Starlight Glimmer, best pony. That's what I would say. In this
Well
whole thing.
Now, Kun, would you like to try that again without talking like a 4chaner?
No, sorry, I was talking like Unga Boonga. Basically, Starlight Glimmer had more time.
like Purple Mare.
Yeah, Purple Mare. Okay,
Good.
I'll put it this way. So,
Rather watch a 3-minute YouTube video or a 3-hour YouTube video if they told essentially the same message and you took away the same points.
okay, I'll put it this way. If I was watching TikTok, Sunset Shimmer makes sense. But to me, I like to sit down and watch things so Starlight Glimmer kind of comes in. Because to me, this is how I'm looking at these characters. I'm pretty sure a lot of people would look at it the same way too. Is basically Sunset Shimmer is Twilight Sparkle 2.0 and Starlight Glimmer's Twilight Sparkle 3.0. They're kind of all in the same boat. I mean, Sunset Shimmer was at one point supposed to be like Celestia's student, right? But then she became evil in a sense, right? And went to the human world and Equestria Girls and all that, right?
When she was old, she did not depart from it.
Right. So Twilight Sparkle kind of became the successor from that, right? And then Starlight Glimmer is kind of like Twilight Sparkle's successor of like the storytelling in the whole sense of the series. So to me, it's just I like Starlight Glimmer because more. It's the Twilight. I mean, I'm like Ember here, okay? They kind of look like Twilight Sparkle.
Exposure therapy.
Yeah.
Was there ever a moment?
I can understand that, actually. Sorry.
No worries. Was there ever a moment where Starlight Glimmer got to take the position of a teacher as opposed to off-screen eventually becoming one, or did she perpetually stay the student?
No,
Yeah.
I would say Starlight Glimmer has. I mean, wait. So Twilight Sparkle is not really
Can
seen
I-
in Free Solar. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Can I, so I'm glad you brought that up because I think one of the best character moments in the entire show for Starlight is in the season 8 premiere where Twilight is making the school and whatnot, and is so there's actually a couple. So she had, I'll bring up the school one since I started on that one first. Where Twilight is
School
trying
based.
to make this school of hers, the school of friendship, work, and she's freaking out a little bit. She's going back into some Twilighting because she's stressed out about this. This is a big step in her life, and so she's kind of falling back on some bad habits. A pretty good character moment for Twilight, actually. Where she is essentially like she's freaking out. She has this guidebook of how to run a school essentially, and is going on through the entire episode. Everything is kind of like falling apart. She's shown that like running things by the book clearly is not helping this school at all.
That
And
dang Dean.
And Starlight comes up and like Starlight starts talking to her, and Twilight brings up the book, but the book, and Starlight just smacks it out of her hand and just hoof.
That perfect.
Just throws it straight
and
into
it's
the
like-
water.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's like, no, you know friendship. You taught me friendship. You should know better than whoever this racist, unga bunga man. I can't use words to describe him right now.
The freaking Dean, you know.
I
Or whatever.
also revert to caveman speak sometimes.
I did.
You're infecting
All
me.
right, so that settles
But,
the debate right there. Sunset is better because Starlight fans can't form full sentences.
No, not really. Starlight
Everyone
Glimmer,
who's a
I think-
Starlight
This-
fan has unga bunga brain.
No,
Here's
I mean,
a-
I won't disagree with that.
Look at your profile picture. You are unga bunga.
I am unga bunga. I
Oh,
will admit
we're
that
doing
much.
slander. Okay, no.
No,
the
I
better
fully take
character-
this, and it's because I've been so awestruck by the power of Starlight Glimmer that words fail me.
Exactly. I mean, that's
Guys,
how
I just want
powerful.
to put it.
That's how
I
powerful.
just want to
Starlight
put it
Glimmer
on the table here. I'll put it in unga bunga language. Starlight.
You're wrong.
I hate her as a person. I hate her as a character. If I met her, I would just hate her. Because you know what? It's really personal to me, and it's unfair. She reminds me of people I hate. She reminds me of people
I'm
I
sorry to hear
hate
that.
who have done horrible things and get forgiven. And I'll give her the freaking, I'll give her this. She isn't as bad as them because she doesn't immediately take advantage of people enabling her. At least not anymore. But yeah, that's what pisses me off so much about her, is I hate her as a person because I know people who have been like her, and I hate them. I hate her because she's a terrible person, and I'm not fully convinced that she's that much better. She still's done some fucked up shit, and maybe she got better eventually, but it just wasn't good enough for me. I
Okay,
don't
Heather,
forgive
Heather,
her. Everyone
Heather.
else forgave her. I didn't forgive her.
So-
Heather, have you
Define
ever?
those
Here's the
with
thing.
logo.
Here's the difference between Starlight and those people, right? Because those
yeah.
people
I
that
said
you hate,
those.
they can get better. Have you ever tried punching them in the face?
I
That's
haven't gotten the opportunity, but I definitely will.
That's
I definitely will.
usually how it works. When people are acting like Starlight Glimmer, if they're not listening to reason, if they don't listen to reason and they are a danger to themselves and everyone else around them, like Starlight Glimmer tends to be, you have to punch them. At which point they realize, I don't like getting punched. Maybe I shouldn't act like this.
But that's the problem.
Better
Starlight Glimmer
character.
didn't get the punch. If someone punched her in
So,
the
yes.
face, I'll drop it right now. If someone gets Starlight Glimmer in here and punches her in the face, I will drop everything if someone
Can I
does
make-
that.
Alright.
Can I make a point
Yeah.
in
Yes.
regards to
Yes.
that? So I like one of the things that keeps being brought up is why did she get the chance when she had everything, she did everything wrong, she screwed up so astronomically, she like enslaved an entire group of people. She, essentially like screwed up the timeline in so many ways that caused all this like all this like horrible devastation. Why did Twilight choose to like essentially forgive her and take the heart angle? And I think the reason that she did, I mean, yes, the show is called Friendship is Magic, but that's not my point. If you watched that episode, Starlight's cool as heck.
Mhm.
So, and by that I mean she is an incredibly talented fighter. She was on the same level as Twilight in that fight. Twilight was not winning that fight. There was nothing else Twilight could do in that situation.
Basically, Starlight came in clutch and kind of like, helped her out.
I'm gonna
Are
give it to,
we
yeah,
talking
she
about
did.
Kitty Remark?
The only thing, no, well, yes. The only thing that Twilight would have done in that situation is try to reach out to her heart, to essentially. Empathy was the only thing that was solving that situation. There was nothing else that could be done. And
Shimmer's special talent.
And Starlight happened to respond very well to that and showed that she was a broken person who was willing to go through that change, who was willing to learn and grow as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Not
I hear
everyone
what you're
has.
saying.
Shimmer after she got
I
punched
hear
in the
what you're
face.
saying. I understand why. I saw it happen. But the thing is, maybe this is getting meta. I hated that whole thing. That's what made me start hating Starlight Glimmer. I hated that finale. It was terrible. I did not like that freaking Twilight was getting a train ran on her, and freaking she couldn't do anything other than like, hey, basically grovel. I hated that. She was a new person who just came in and just trucked all over an established character that we loved and respected, and I knew could have done more. And I hated that. It was awful. I didn't like it at all. That was the worst finale that we had ever had. It was terrible.
You want to know something? You want to know something interesting about that?
Yeah.
I did too. I hated that, like that whole interaction when I first saw it, because I did not like Starlight initially, because I didn't understand her as a character. Because I do think that one of the problems with that, again, I think the introduction of her as a part of the quote-unquote main cast is one of the worst areas about her. But as the show went on and we learned more about who Starlight is and what kind of person she is, that retroactively makes those scenes so much more impactful. It makes I mean, we were kind of talking earlier about how much like those events in her childhood affected her and why it could have spiraled out to where she is now. But it essentially gave context to those things. And that's why I like Starlight so much. Because she is an incredibly relatable character. If you take everything that she was a part of and put it all together, it all makes sense. And a lot of the, like, I'm trying to think of another show that, another cartoon, that there are things that happen in it initially that don't make sense without context of later things. But that
While
happens.
you're thinking about it,
Uh-huh.
do do you notice that the argument in favor of what ultimately overcame and overpowered Starlight's malice was the same point of emphasis that made Starlight Glimmer so effective a redeemer? Because on top of being the role of the student, where Sunset Shimmer found herself in perpetually, Sunset Shimmer was able to effectively not only receive the message after one solid punch in the face, and ultimately became the person who wasn't relearning the same lesson over and over, but making disciples, being able to be the embodiment of empathy in the main 7 in Equestria Girls, not only Forgotten Friendship, Friendship Games, Legends of Everfree, and so forth, but in those 3 films, were able to effectively communicate exactly what Starlight ultimately also did, but much more concisely, much more clearly.
Yes, and that adds more to your point of, Sunset more mirroring Paul. But I'm talking as characters. I think Starlight taking longer to learn that lesson, essentially, to, fully change from the person that she was before, makes her a more believable character in a TV show.
A slow learner?
Yeah.
Well, Starlight also got to actually have a teacher. Sunset, for the most part, was off on her own, learning the lessons on her own, much in the same way repeating Twilight's growth.
Yeah.
Sure, she had Twilight to lean on
just
through letters, much as Twilight had Celestia, but
I mean, freaking
Starlight had Twilight for the whole thing.
Sunset was
Twilight had all
under
her friends
Sunset was under
and whatnot.
Celestia a while ago, so basically Sunset was the failed Twilight.
And Starlight is the failed Sunset.
No, Starlight's just Twilight Sparkle's basically
Apprentice.
Twilight Sparkle's apprentice. So really, Starlight kind of has like its own embodiment, while Sunset Shimmer is more like this is what happens if Twilight didn't, so to speak, go down the route that Celestia wanted, or in that case. So that's why I kind of like Starlight
And that's
Glimmer.
why there was a contrast between their characters in Mirror Magic, if you remember, because they were both learning the same lesson, but the problem was Starlight didn't learn it. She had to keep learning it and relearning it, and the only way, and this was kind of the theme of her story, which is why I wouldn't say she's an inferior character, but a lesser character telling the same message, is if it's ultimately tied into that principle of here's how you learn from it, as opposed to here's an example of how to make a mistake in it. I can relate to mistakes, but I want to learn from people who actually get it.
I think I think it's less so about, for me at least, I think it's less so about the, how do I put this?
That Sunset Shimmer is okay, but Starlight Glimmer is okayer.
Well, you
Let me
could
get
lean
it
back
into
on the old
the-
idea that you learn more from failure.
Yeah, that's
Well,
true. I mean,
Well,
that's
and
basically our life.
Starlight-
Did she? Because she had to keep relearning the same lessons. Look at just the namesake. What's more effective? The sun that you can enjoy the sunsets of, or the distant starlight that you only get a glimmer of? That's our point.
Yeah, but this is how I
Starlight is
see
this
it.
far off distant light, which is still a light. Sunset is the light that we get to enjoy every single day, the actual practical benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
But the way
but that's not.
they all feel like because they all kind of have like that Twilight Sparkle, which is in the Twilight Sunset Shimmer, which the sunset shimmering right on the ring, and then you got Starlight Glimmer. It's all space related.
Yeah, and I'm illustrating the point in order to drive home quantity over quality. It's the other way around.
Mm.
Yes, I do. I do think that if Sunset had as much time to grow as a character as Starlight did, then I think I probably would like Sunset more.
I'd agree.
Um,
I would
Taller,
definitely
the
like
person who
Sunset
grows
more.
2 feet?
But
Who's taller, the person who grows 2 feet in 1 week, or the person who grows 11 inches in 5 years?
You get to get more experience with those 11
don't-
inches, I guess.
it's
But they both told the same story. They're both arcs of redemption. Sunset.
I just want to say
Shimmer.
real quick that somebody who grows 2 feet in, what'd you say, 5 weeks, is going to be an extreme pain.
I'm making a radical
Well, they're
illustration.
both in pain.
But
The question is, if she reaches the same destination, if not lesser so, then it ultimately ends up behind the person who grew very quickly. That's our point.
Yeah, I
Starlight
don't
had
think-
more experience.
they're different characters. I think the growth being over time as opposed to
All of a sudden, like, bam.
in like a much short. I'm saying that I think that Starlight is a more believable redemption arc than
Yeah, she had more
Sunset.
dynamic, I would say. You know.
And I think it's more relatable because as human beings, we don't change entirely when one event happens in our lives. We will fall back on bad habits a lot. A lot of times, we're numbskulls who have to relearn the same lesson a ton of times. And I do agree that doing that too much can lead to frustrations with characters in like a TV show because they're not people, right? Like they're not actual real life people. Like one of the biggest complaints when the show was going on was, oh, Fluttershy is learning the exact same lesson like a billion times. And that can be frustrating, but I don't feel that way with Starlight. I think there are certain instances where she will make kind of the same mistake, but in the same vein, I think her flaws are also tied to some of her strongest like character attributes and tied to some of her biggest strengths as well.
Which is the ability to repeat failure.
No. I think Starlight's biggest character trait is what would it be? Or
When
what is it
man
called?
falls 7 times, they rise up again.
No. Being reactionary, I guess.
Yes,
Being,
I think that's a good point. Reaction.
Like Pinkie Pie.
No.
Pinkie Pie's
no.
more positive.
So,
in some
okay.
sense.
An instance where Starlight's like I'm trying to think of like a proper word for it, but where being reactionary hurt Starlight and did something awful for her is like, you know, when in every little thing she does, where she, you know, brainwashes her friends because she's like, well, if I can't solve this, if I'm having a hard time overcoming this situation with my emotions, I'll just do it with my brain.
Bam,
and like, you know, problem solved, quote unquote. But she ended up like
doing more harm
learning
than
from
good.
that you know she
then
does
learn.
need to that is
How many
yeah,
times
that
did
can do
Starlight
more
Glimmer
harm than
have to? How
Here's
many
the
times
thing.
was Starlight Glimmer paralyzed by her shame and guilt and had to overcome that, as opposed to Sunset, who did it once effectively in Rainbow Rocks?
She did
I
it 3
think-
times.
3 times. So, same message, same conclusion, same result. But ultimately, which character did it the most effectively? The one who overcame 3 dazzlings, or the person who just kept having to defeat their greatest enemy, which was themselves? Is the better
think-
character the one who defeats the bad guy, or continuously has to not be the bad guy?
I would say Starlight Glimmer because she keeps messing up, learning from it, messing up, learning from it. So eventually she became like, okay, fuck, you know.
think-
and
I don't think
the
performing has
best
anything to
in-
do with it, but the point of emphasis is centered on that. Is the lesson effectively communicated through the character? And yes, there is a place. That's why I'm saying she's not an inferior character, just to a slighter degree, a less effective one in communicating those points. If she overcame shame, Sunset did too, but more effectively. If she got her power under control, Sunset did too, but more effectively. If she was able to ultimately learn from her mistakes and become a teacher so that they didn't repeat her mistakes, Sunset did it too. That's why Heather and I are arguing she's the better character.
right.
So essentially going through character growth quicker makes a character better.
Because, and this is the
Efficiently
point,
the
this is
word
the
you want to
point,
use.
I
this
would
is the
think
point. This
I
is the
would
point,
think,
because we're not there just to learn one lesson. Sunset has more opportunity to learn new lessons, make her own mistakes, and grow from them. Starlight was stuck in the same mistake for
But
4 seasons.
I feel like each one was kind of a different lesson every time she had that issue.
I still feel like we're looking at this in two different things. We're kind of arguing two like points on completely different spectrums, and that's why like.
All right, I think I know how to settle. I think I know how to settle this debate. Look inside yourself and ask yourself which one, if these two people were real, which one would you rather hang out with and be friends? Right?
Last time I looked inside myself, I didn't stop screaming for a week.
Yeah, we all know you. We all know you got issues, but that's the thing. Is and I'm with Heather on this one. I've had friends. And I still got a couple friends that need to learn the same thing over and over and over again. And typically after the third time I got to teach someone some kind of lesson, I go, I don't give up. I go, I've told you this before. We've been over this before. What did I tell you last time? It's the same thing. Say, you freaking remember what I said and implement it, right? Which person is better to hang out with and be friends with and is more trustworthy? The one that can actually learn, or the one that learns quickly, the one that is is genuinely trying to help other people, or the one that is going to get impatient and sell your house behind your back while you're sleeping?
Good students.
Okay, you guys keep bringing that up. Please remember the rest of that episode where they were both just continuously aggravating each other and just getting worse and worse.
That was across the line.
I would never.
And you know what, Trixie for the wagon for the night to sleep alone.
I would mount Trixie's skull on a pike in my backyard, but I do think that she was the victim in that situation.
Yeah. I liked that you didn't put any awkward pause after mount. Thank you. I got nervous.
But I do want to add though is that the one thing I keep getting back to with Shady's thing is the same destination when it's not. Starlight and Sunset do not get the same destination. Mm-hmm. Looking back at the show, Starlight is not a teacher. She is a guidance counselor who becomes the principal. It is not the principal's job to teach.
She's the leader. She's an example.
I actually disagree.
She's not even the leader. She oversees everyone to make sure things are going on the right track. That's not necessarily a leader. What she's doing is just making sure things are continuing the way Twilight left them.
I agree.
So incapable of communicating what she learned.
I agree that that Starlight and Sunset do not reach the same conclusion. I disagree that Starlight is not a teacher. But essentially, what I'm saying is, does a character have to be someone that you would want to hang out with in real life to be a well-written, enjoyable character?
Oh, definitely not. But in terms of which one of them is better, that definitely gives Sunset an edge.
I would go as far to say I wouldn't hang out with either of them, but Starlight Glimmer has a freaking story to tell as she's learning her things and going through her issues.
Sunset Shimmer played video games.
You almost murdered members
Sunset
of her
played video games. I don't care. So do a lot of other YouTubers. Okay.
What? You think you don't want to play Pal World with Sunset?
No.
I'd rather play with you guys. Freaking Heather Blossom.
But she's in the group. We'll let her in. She can be part of the freaking Boobies for Bros Guild.
If we bring Starlight Glimmer and I'm down, let's do this. It'll be fun.
Starlight, and
Starlight Glimmer. Well, that is her kind of game, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah. my argument is essentially that I like Starlight more because I feel she is a more relatable character. Mm-hmm. Because I have dealt with a lot of the issues that she has. I think Sunset is a great, well-written character. I don't think that I think there are parts of her arc that are lacking in some ways. And granted, I wasn't the biggest like Equestria Girls fan. I haven't seen all of the shorts and whatnot. I've seen the movies, and I've seen what is it? I saw Mirror Magic because, you know, Starlight. But I just think that Starlight is a much more relatable character, simply because she is flawed. She is. I think she is more flawed, and I think that makes her a more, not literally because she is flawed, she is a relatable character. Because you can write a flawed character. You can write a villain who's just a one-note like evil person, and like, you know,
Yes,
their
that's
flaw
a
is
Shimmer.
that they're evil. That that's not the point I'm making.
And Sunset Shimmer was never flawed.
Right.
But-
She just had a bad like
No,
issue. That's
I'm
basically
not
it.
saying that she was never flawed. I'm saying that Starlight's flaws being more of a, I think Starlight's arc being more gradual makes her more relatable as a character. And you can blame that on, like, you can blame that on the fact that, you know, Sunset had to go through her arc via movies, and by the second movie, she essentially had to be the stand-in for Twilight. She had to be the main character. But I think
But in Friendship Game, she had to confront her past, who she was, and history repeating itself. And there she got to be a teacher. So,
Yes.
Starlight Glimmer never fought an equivalent of herself.
Starlight never fought an equivalent of herself.
That's
well,
true.
I
yeah.
would-
hold on. I
I
would
would
say
argue-
her and Twilight were definitely stalemated during Cutie Remark. That was something I disagreed with earlier. That Starlight
Not
was.
during her redemption arc.
Oh, Twilight is basically her.
Yeah, so
adversary.
Twilight is. I will say that Twilight is not as good of a fighter. She wasn't going to hit Starlight with the same sort of rage and vindication that she was fighting Tyrek with, but you know, she wanted to stop.
Don't mess with her book.
Yeah, she wanted to stop Starlight. She wanted to hurt Tyrek, right? And and Starlight wanted to hurt her. And when you have a difference in intention in a fight like that, it's gonna give the edge to the person that just wants to not fight is always going to lose to the person that wants to hurt you. And that was that fight. That was that fight right there. I can't believe that an Alicorn could get matched in power by just Starlight there. So
But
I think it's just
where
because
was
Starlight
Starlight
is
in
based, but, you
Sparkle?
know.
wait, what'd you say?
Yeah,
But where was Starlight's Midnight Sparkle? Starlight had to confront someone making her same mistakes and be their reason to be redeemed. She learned the lesson of Twilight. When did Starlight learn that last lesson?
I would argue that was Stygian in a sense. She wasn't in direct opposition to Stygian, but she was the reason that Stygian was able to be saved. Because
And you
she
know
could.
Stygian is Starlight's equivalent, that he made the same mistakes she did?
In a sense, not the exact same mistakes, but
And that's the argument. It's a small one, but that's why we would put Sunset on top.
because she had to fight someone who had made her
Because
exact
she
same
overcame
mistakes.
her own mistakes on
And
equal footing and ultimately chose to be the light and was the light effectively. Starlight never did that.
And that's another thing about Starlight never having to fight someone on equal terms. I also can't, I hated when she was able to overpower Discord. That should not have been able to happen. Discord is on a completely different level of even reality.
Starlight is just that cool. That's all I'm saying.
Nah, that's a
agree.
bad.
No,
That is a
Mary Sue.
bad, overpowered Mary Sue character in that.
That's definitely an anomaly in that position. 'cause
Unless
she was able to,
Discord,
like, finish her from the
unless
school.
Discord was like, oh, this is what Starlight's trying to do. It would be funny if I went along and then pranked her in a way. Unless Discord was doing that, which was not explicitly stated in the episode, so I can only headcanon here.
Okay,
Unless Discord was doing that, Starlight is an overpowered Mary Sue.
My genuine argument here is that Discord is essentially, like, we agree that Discord is his scaling in the show is essentially that he can do whatever the heck he wants, except for like very specific scenarios, like the Changeling Hive, right?
That's his nature.
Outside of that, he is like basically all powerful, and yet he has been beaten multiple times. And what ended up causing that defeat in each of those scenarios?
Usually his own hubris and naivete.
It was underestimating the situation. And I think
how did Starlight overcome her adversaries?
I think Discord did not. I just hold on a second.
We're getting ahead.
Yes. Discord being beaten by Starlight there. Like, I joke and I'm like, oh yeah, Starlight's the most powerful thing because, it's goofy. But Starlight overcoming Discord there is because Discord didn't think that she would retaliate against him.
Yeah, she did. Now, interestingly, we seem to bring other characters to talk about with Starlight Glimmer, but yet we're not talking about Sunset Shimmer with all these other characters because Starlight Glimmer experienced these other characters. You know?
Yeah.
So Starlight Glimmer's better. I'm sorry. Gotta say it. Always better.
Starlight Glimmer does have a fairly much larger friend group than Sunset.
Exactly.
Well, that goes back to Shady's thing of quality over quantity.
That's a thing that I gotta say. Is it quantity over quality? I don't like having a lot of friends.
But sometimes, I mean, it's interesting because my situation is I do have my childhood friends and I do have my now friends. So it's like, I guess to me, the whole quality and quantity thing kind of meshes together because, I have a quantity of friends, but they're quality friends.
Starlight isn't a part of the main six. She has her own friend group with
Trixie,
she has her own essentially second cast of characters. She's got Sunburst, Trixie, Discord, Thorax. Like, she has her own characters that she is closer to than...
And Sunset has her own characters that are different from the main six, though they bear the same name. It's a different universe.
Yeah.
Yes.
A different storyline, a different...
I'm not saying this as a point against Sunset. I'm just defending Starlight here. I don't think that one of them having more friends is a point to them, but I think it's disingenuous to say that that Starlight is not close to anyone or doesn't have any close friends, and it's not a quantity thing.
I never argued that. The point is that she was able to, I'm referring to Sunset, effectively teach others the lesson she learned. Starlight had to keep relearning the same lesson. And when she ultimately reached her destination, it was off screen. Sunset we saw in living time.
Starlight Glimmer had the screen time.
Yes.
Had the screen time to fail?
Many times over and over, but she had friends along with.
I think we're
talking about the ultimate.
A few times.
I think we're talking in circles at this point, but finish what you're saying.
Can I explain what I think is going on here?
Yeah.
I think we value different things in characters, and that's why we have this difference in opinion.
Which is why I define my terms.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's totally fair. I don't think that I don't think that I'm going to convert you over to the Starlight fan club via this.
I could in a moment if it would annoy Heather.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down. I'm down to join the fan club. Let's do it.
Heather, I don't think I'm gonna get Heather in a million years, but
if one of you switches over, I'll switch to Starlight right now, and we'll debunk her.
Just take it from me.
You can't debunk a thing. You can't debunk a thing.
Now, just take it from me. If Sunset Shimmer took Starlight Glimmer's place, I would have liked Sunset Shimmer more. You know, again, boiling down to my point, she had more, like basically the character had more screen time, so of course I'm gonna have more interest in the character over a character that I've heard about and watched a couple movies about, but never completely followed through with that side because we still got the main characters.
I like Starlight more because I relate to her more. She has a lot of attributes, she has a lot of flaws about her that I relate to very heavily. So
Mr.
that's
Someone has
why I
also
like her
tried to
as a character.
brainwash all of his friends
I have, yeah.
into
It was
being
a-
Starlight Glimmer
That's a Glimmer.
fans.
And continue on
I
the end
think
started for your wars.
Yeah, I think that's
And
a
you're the
Starlight
reason
Glimmer.
Clement Clan destroyed Sweet Apple Acres. I hope you're happy.
Yep. Yeah. I'll take the L on that one. I'll
So we're talking in circles for the most part here. So we're gonna wrap this up in a second. There is one more thing one more question that I wanted to ask is Mr. Someone, when we were talking a couple of weeks ago, I had asked you of curiosity when you joined the fandom, and so tell us real quick, when did you join the fandom?
So I think when I started watching the show and when I joined the fandom are kind of two different times.
Mm-hmm.
I started watching the show back in late 2014, early 2015, around that time. It was during the hiatus between season 4 and season 5. That's when I started watching the show.
That's when you got into Glim Glam, basically.
No. Well, I mean, it is when Glim Glam was introduced. But again, like I said, when she was first a main character, I didn't like her that much. But when I really got into the fandom was in 20... It's hard to pinpoint an exact year.
So
2020 was when I started kind of dipping my toes into it. But 2022 was about when I started. It was when I started my my podcast. Shameless plug. But it's also around the time that because I had that, I had people listen that I ended up talking to down the line. Other people who made stuff in the fandom that I started talking to and becoming friends with and whatnot. And I would say that's around when I really joined the fandom, is when I started developing friendships with people who were also actively involved in the
okay, so we're gonna say 2015, right? Here's something that I noticed, and here's a pattern that I've been noticing in my observation of the fandom, and I want to see if anybody else has noticed the same thing. Older fans, people that came in 2012, 2013, especially if they came into the fandom on Equestria Girls. I wish we still had my old friend Pony Cordero on here, because he was actually more of an Equestria Girls fan than he was a Brony, and they all gravitated towards Sunset, but 2015, 2016 and onward, when people are coming in, especially if they past 2016, people who join the fandom tend to gravitate more towards Starlight. Has anybody else noticed that pattern?
Yes,
100%.
definitely.
Considering I'm an exception to the rule, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I mean, I've been with the fandom since the very beginning of 2011, 2012. So I can definitely see when the Equestria Girls came out, I was excited to watch it with my friends. We went to go watch it, and definitely I knew about Sunset Shimmer at the time, but she didn't really, stick. I just called her Bacon Hair at the time. Yeah, that's what everybody was calling her at the time. And then come 2015, 2016, when Starlight Glimmer showed up to the scene as kind of I was looking at it more of like a meme. The whole communistic kind of side of things with Starlight Glimmer, right? So I've watched the whole fandom kind of shift onto that. And then, of course, come 2018 to 2019, if you guys can agree with this, of course, we got the fans for the main Creature 6, from the School 6, you got the main 6 of Starlight Glimmer, then you got, the main 6. You got the CMC I think background character main 6, I think, what became a big thing.
The chat's backing me up on this too. We got we got Rusty and Edgardo both saying they came in after Equestria Girls and are more for Starlight. So there's something. I think I'm gonna give a little bit of psychological analysis here. I think there is an aspect of nostalgia at play in Sunset Shimmer fans.
Oh, definitely. I can see that. I mean, I haven't followed much into it, but I could definitely see that point.
Indeed. Now, of course, DJ said
that
he's the exception. Of course, every pattern has its exception, but the exception does not disprove the rule. But I would say in somewhere around like 60 to 70% of the time, I have seen this pattern repeat itself. Now, with that, let's get into audience participation. We'll try to make it quick because we're running a bit over time here. So I'm gonna go over to the Discord, and I'm going to let Rusty Heraldy join if I can find his name. There he is. I'm gonna let him call in if he wants to bring up any points that we missed. And in the meantime, let's go over some of the chat that I have seen that I thought was really interesting. Rusty himself says, all right, my first point to Starlight over Sunset. Sunset had to be depowered by the friendship nuke and forced to surrender before she was sorry and regretful. Meanwhile, Starlight, once she realized the destruction she was doing, surrendered willingly while she was still fully powered and had the upper hand. So Starlight, according to Rusty, Starlight is better because she came willingly and didn't need to be nuked by the magical MacGuffin that the fandom still debates whether or not actually brainwashes people.
I agree.
Yeah.
Heather, what do you think about that?
I really didn't collect a lot of that.
Okay,
She
so
doesn't wanna listen.
there's Rusty. So Rusty, how are you doing?
Doing good. How about you?
Good. Did we miss any points that you wanted to bring up in the conversation tonight?
I put in a few points that I had on my list. Let me see. I know that you're pressed.
So
for
one that
time,
we
so I'll
were
try to make them-
that we were just talking about was early on in the stream. You had said Starlight is better because she reformed willingly, where Sunset needed to be nuked by the elements of harmony, and the fandom likes to debate as to whether or not that actually is free will.
Correct. Yeah. That was one point that I had for Starlight was that that Starlight had to that Sunset essentially had to be beaten down before she was sorry. But once Starlight realized what she was doing was actually destroying the planet, essentially destroying the space-time continuum, she backed down willingly. Like, oh crap, this isn't what I wanted. I actually thought that I was doing good in my own twisted sense of, in my own twisted sense of
I
thinking.
gotcha.
She
So
realized her fault. Yeah.
so Heather, what do you think about that?
Doesn't that fall in line with the thing you brought up before, that some people need to be punched in the face in order to see the error of their ways? I think it's perfectly fine. Like, if she really, really didn't want to reform, after she got punched in the face, she could have been a bitter bitch and tried to, like, plan something in the background, but she didn't. That really was her being brought down to earth, and I think that was very powerful. With Starlight Glimmer, that's why I'm just not fully convinced of anything, because I didn't feel like something really got hammered into her that she learned initially.
Starlight lost at the beginning of season 5, and then did exactly what you said.
Yeah, like, she had that moment.
She was literally stalking her in the background for that whole season before she made her play.
And Sunset Shimmer's redemption wasn't when she stopped being bad. It's when she chose to be good in the next movie.
Yeah. Like, just the way I see it, it's like Sunset Shimmer, it's like, okay, you're down, you're out, accept it, and she accepted it. While Starlight Glimmer, it's like, oh wow, I caused this? Oh my god. I'm gonna pull back and actually,
I don't think,
recollect
here's the thing though,
myself here.
Kun, I don't think Starlight actually had that revelation. Twilight
took the
was able
revelation to happen.
Twilight was able to convince her that it was possible to get what she wanted out of life, and then she decided to try it Twilight's way because it was less painful than fighting Twilight to a stalemate for forever. And in a freaking infinite time, Twilight pulled a Doctor Strange and Dormammu on Starlight. That's what happened there. The
Right.
So that's what's so villains like Starlight tend to be more like, okay, I don't care if the world gets destroyed. You know, why do I have to be miserable? Like, why would I care if the world gets destroyed? The world never did anything for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that.
It was a wake-up call for her.
Yeah. So
that was her metaphorical punch to the face.
Yes.
So Rusty, real quick, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, it's like my other another point that I had was like for instance their backstories. It's like Sunset had freaking Celestia as a mentor, like the best teacher that you could have. Starlight had her doting father, who in the parent map, even while she was a grown mare, he was still not wanting her to talk to strangers due to stranger danger. And it's like, how is Starlight supposed to be a functioning adult in that kind of situation, whereas Sunset had everything that she could need, essentially a Twilight.
Can I summarize that in like something more like concise, essentially?
Yeah.
Sunset, and I was thinking about this earlier. I'm really glad you brought it up because I completely forgot about it. Yeah, Sunset had the upbringing of Celestia, while Starlight didn't. Essentially, the way that I look at it is that Sunset knew when she ended up being confronted. Sunset knew what the right thing to do was, knew where her flaws were. Starlight did not.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
Starlight thought that she was doing good in her own twisted mindset, but once she was convinced by Twilight that she was in the wrong, she surrendered. Once she figured that out.
Just like Paul.
Officer, you can't give me a speeding ticket. I didn't know the speed limit was 25 through here while I'm doing 70.
I didn't know Jesus was legitimately the Messiah. I thought he was a cult. Now I'm seeing you risen from the dead. I'm sorry.
I didn't know I needed money.
I just think it's a lot more understandable in, like, I think they're both understandable why they reacted the ways that they did and why it took Starlight longer than it took Sunset.
They had their own issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which one other point that I have for Starlight having to take longer to fully reform is that, and this is going into headcanon territory, but I theorize that due to her like mentality of essentially leading a Marxist cult, she's had like study up and believe in that crap, and it's like being that much into that kind of stuff, it really warps your mind, and she has to deconstruct that mindset in order to like grasp how to be a functioning member of society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see.
So
that
she
point.
had long. So your point is that Starlight had longer, like she had to start from a lower position than Sunset.
Yeah.
So Sunset, so and that's interesting because Shady's point was Sunset ended in a higher position than Starlight. Well, Sunset also started at a higher position than Starlight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she had she had Celestia as a tutor. She knew right from wrong. Starlight essentially warped her mind, and I mean, my headcanon is that she self-taught herself, like the whole Marxist cult, whatever you want to call what she did, and fully believed it to a point where Twilight convinced her that was wrong.
Starlight's basically more grounded in this situation than Sunset.
So
she could be ashamed of her ability to make better decisions slower.
maybe. Sorry.
Yeah, she probably does
What do
feel
you,
ashamed.
Heather? What do you
No,
think about
she
that?
should be ashamed of her inability to make good decisions.
I mean, wasn't she?
Why?
That's the absurdum I'm putting forward.
Yeah.
Why
I
is it
mean-
arguing she's a better character because you have to victimize her in order to make Sunset seem privileged and straight and white?
Oh, we're going into the
Whoa.
racism again.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. But no,
No,
let me
that's
take
the
over here. Let me
argument.
take over
You're
here. This is my
arguing,
stream now.
Uh-oh.
The argument, you say, well, Sunset had privilege.
We
That's
don't
not an
know that
argument.
actually, because all
No,
we
that's-
know is
I'm
that
not
she's
saying
Celestia's student. We don't know how she got there. We don't know
Well,
how she
she's
became.
been more
We just
educated.
know it.
Exactly.
We just know
Sunset didn't have a
Celestia was under her
backstory.
belt.
I don't think the entire
Sunset
audience
didn't
caught
have
a single
backstory.
word of that jumble.
Yeah,
Uh,
I didn't. So.
Heather, what do you think? What do you think of the points that Rusty is making? We'll get that real quick and then we'll move
I'm
on.
saying I want to go over like how I don't think we even know if Sunset came from a place of privilege. Yeah, she eventually got the privilege of being Celestia's student, but what do we really know about her outside of that? She clearly didn't have any family to go back to in Equestria because she didn't feel or really felt compelled canonically to go back to Equestria for like anything.
We
So
just know
it
she
might even
didn't
be safe to
feel
assume because Rusty went into headcanon, let me go into headcanon here. So, like Sunset must have had either a very bad family life or no family at all prior to being Celestia's student, which probably is another reason she kind of went on the path that she did of overambition, because she started with nothing, now she wants to have it all.
In a deleted
And now
scene,
she's going into
in a deleted scene of of the friendship games, Sunset said, "I've never been close to my family even before I came here."
Okay, so there you go right there. I am correct. And I gotta say, like, that says a lot about her. She actually isn't any more privileged than Starlight. In fact, Starlight at least kind of has a relation with her father left. She
But-
still has, and she eventually rebuilt her friendship with the person she thought she lost to begin with.
But also, Sunset, we do know that Sunset grew up in Canterlot and was accepted into the School for Gifted Unicorns. So she was probably it's probably safe to assume she came from some kind of well-off family in order to get there.
And they
That
Maybe
doesn't
about as well
necessarily
off as
mean-
Twilight Sparkle. That doesn't necessitate that, but we also see in the comics she didn't have any close ties friendship-wise either, so she really was kind of isolated.
I think it's fair to say that just
Not make her a better
because
or worse character.
just
Sunset
because
didn't have
that
friends.
just because she came from like if we're assuming that she came from a well-off family, then just because she came from a well-off family doesn't mean she came from a good family. And like, yeah, that's totally understandable. I think there is a lot to like extrapolate from there. I think Sunset's whole arc is very similar, or her story is very similar to what's his name? Tai Lung from Kung Fu Panda. She had a tutor who essentially told her that she was going to be this great.
Master Shifu. Yeah. I remember.
I think Tai Lung was a guy, but continue.
Well,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
obviously. but-
Well, no, we're talking about
but-
Sunset here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought you were talking about Tai Lung. Sorry.
That Tai Lung had a master who essentially was telling him that he was going to be the Dragon Warrior. Celestia had Sunset, who was essentially meant to be her prodigy, essentially. But when there was a form of in Tai Lung's case, it was a direct rejection. In Sunset's case, it was essentially like letting that what was it actually that I'm actually kind of forgetting. What
comic
was
it's
it that
clarified.
prompted?
I think
Well,
I think
In the
It was
comic, it
Sunset going
clarified.
up to the mirror and seeing that she saw in the mirror in the castle, she would look into it and see herself as a princess. So she saw what being on the road to Celestia could eventually bring her. But the thing was, Celestia saw like the dark ambition and was like, no, you need more time before you can really ascend to that kind of role.
Yes.
And because she saw this in the mirror, Sunset figured that must have something to do with her attaining even greater power, so she went through it. And
Yes.
then Celestia never saw her again.
And I'm using all this to say I do like Sunset. I do think that she is a very compelling character.
Yeah, she is.
I just relate more to Starlight, and I think that her, I think that she has justification for why her redemption took so much longer than Sunset's, both from a meta perspective and from a character perspective. Because yes, Sunset may have come from from even, let's say, even an abusive family, right? Or maybe no family at all. Maybe Celestia took her under her wing. But she still gained those, proper insights on life, on morality, on, etc. And Starlight's father, while being a nice guy, also showed that he didn't really respect her as a person, and that she most likely was a bit of a shut-in a sense. She probably didn't have a lot. It's very clear that Sunburst, being a friend to her, was very important to her. She most likely didn't have any other friends, so probably the only big influences in her life were Sunburst and her dad. And I think the argument there is that, yes, Sunset might have also started from a low place, but she was able to recognize her faults. When she decided that this isn't the way and that I'm going to pursue becoming a better person, which Sunset, was essentially at gunpoint at that point. But I'm not trying to use that point as a point against Sunset. But when that happened, when she did have her turning point, she had all of that tutoring that she now was essentially recognizing that was the way. Starlight did not have she didn't have that. She didn't have a mentor that was teaching her all these things about friendship. She didn't have friends.
Twilight. Yeah.
And Twilight was the first one, essentially.
Yeah, this actually makes me ask, did Sunset Shimmer even have any friends initially before this whole thing? Is there some kind of lore behind it where she did have friends, or?
We don't know.
She met people who would be her friend. She met Maud.
Yeah, but in Starlight Glimmer had one friend and lost that friend, and then now has a lot of friends in the later seasons, so...
All right,
and we didn't need to know that because Sunset was told more effectively.
We need to move on here. Rusty, thanks for coming on the show.
All right, thanks for having me.
Yep, catch you later. So, moving on here. Xander says, to be honest, in terms of Sunset's aesthetics, Sunset had an advantage over Starlight in clothes since ponies don't usually wear clothes.
I would say even pony-wise, I rate her above her. She just had such a great mane style. But if you want to do in clothes, I think Starlight had a pretty solid human design, if you're really into ripped jeans.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that.
I do like Starlight's human design, yeah.
Since they've both been ponified and humanified, respectively, you could always go side by side. It makes it a little more fair. I think Starlight's human design wasn't bad. I'll give her that. It was pretty good.
You look almost similar,
Because they kind of went around the same thing.
Yeah, I feel like they are the same thing, just different colors, opposite colors of each other.
I will, though, argue that area there is the most subjective point.
It totally is. It totally is. Yeah.
But I like Starlight's design more than Sunset's personally, but I also like those types of colors a lot more. I like the cooler colors as opposed to the warmer.
I feel like Sunset speaks more to me in this sense because I like both colors, and of course this is My Little Pony, Technicolor ponies. I love it all, and purple is usually one of my favorite colors. The thing is, I find Sunset refreshing because we got so much purple and pink and soft colors. To have like a bold red going through your hair and stuff like that, it sticks out to me. It definitely sticks out.
I can
It
see
does
that point.
stick out.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
man.
still best.
Mangle Muffet says, Heather, chill and have this calming hot cocoa. And then she says she gives you a cup of hot cocoa with whipped cream and drizzled in caramel.
Oh, I shouldn't
So,
have that, but
Except this gift from Mangle Muffet in return
shouldn't
for
have that,
calming
so
the
I will.
frig down
I
when
love
you
that.
ran. Yeah, calming the frig down when you ran about Starlight. Paladin Pony T says, Heather, have you never watched the Equestria Girl shorts? Sunset was not nice in Forgotten Friendships. I think Sunset was really
That's
freaking
the past,
frustrated
though.
in Forgotten Friendships.
Like, I wasn't denying that at all.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't denying that at all. But
It
you
all
know, what character's even more frustrating than Starlight in the brief up time that they got was Wallflower Blush. Like,
Okay,
Wallflower
I
Blush's whole
100%
deal
agree with
frustrated
you.
me.
Thank
Really
you.
frustrating.
Thank you so much.
So next week we're coming back to talk about how Wallflower Blush is a sack of shit.
Sign
No.
me up. Sign me up.
They didn't even bother with the speech on Wallflower Blush. Pinkie Pie just went, light her up! Let's see.
Man.
I
mean,
mean, you got cut off. They didn't get to hear that.
at that
I
point,
was
they
down
joined
the
in.
hall.
Freaking, okay, so I'll say it again. Wallflower Blush didn't even get this speech. Pinkie Pie just came in and went, light her up!
It still did the same thing.
Yeah, it still did the same thing, but that's okay. I think we
Light her up.
we
That's what
get
she
the
said. She went,
praise.
light her up, ladies. Frick, I really wish I could voice act on this podcast.
Yeah.
Let's see, Xander. Okay, so we're getting into shipping now. Because Xander wants
Yeah.
to know.
Oh, do we ship it? Do we ship it?
I ship it.
That's
Frickin'
later.
Sunlight.
That's later. Right now, Xander wants to know Sombra and Sunset or Sombra and Starlight. Which one is scarier?
Ooh.
Which one is scarier?
I would say
Probably-
I
Sunset
don't
and
know.
I would say
frickin'
Starlight.
Sunbra. Sunbra.
You know, maybe bad things are gonna get crazy up in that kingdom.
I would say Starlight and Sombra because they got the whole like they both have the whole like mind control thing going on
Oh, that's
and
a
like
good
more
point.
cult aspects.
Yeah,
That's
that's a
scary.
good point. Yeah.
Plus, we know
If we're
Starlight
talking
has a lot of
really-
magical power. We don't know how strong Sunset is.
Starbra. Wait.
Don't need
Yeah.
to.
Being a Celestia student, I assume pretty tough. Pretty tough.
She probably
Oh,
is a pretty accomplished magical.
Has to be,
unicorn,
right?
But we haven't
Uh,
seen it, so.
But we haven't seen it, and we have seen Starlight go
I
toe to toe
think-
with the
I
prince,
think
with the
Starlight-
element
Remember when
magic.
she turned
Night
into a
Sparkle.
god?
She matched Midnight Sparkle.
Only by
Yeah.
absorbing magic of others.
Oh.
Mhm.
I
don't
think
remember
Okay,
that
guys, listen
cover.
up. I think Starlight is teaming up with Sombra would be scarier. Starlight is just, well, I don't know about just as much, but very close to Sombra in terms of tactics, and the two of them collaborating could
That'd be a serious situation.
would probably
Starlight?
be unstoppable.
Starlight is very like interesting to me as a villain because of how charismatic she is. She's
Her bangs?
probably the most. Yeah, it's all the bangs.
Yeah.
No, she's probably the most like charismatic villain in the series. Simply because like she showed that she has incredible powers and is incredibly talented, but the reason that she had such like the reason she was in such a good position against the main six is because she had so many people behind her who believed in her and her words, and that's terrifying.
And then
But
even
I
after
love-
even after
I
that, even
love
after
that.
she lost that, she stalked Twilight for a full season, learned her freaking patterns, learned the layout of her castle, and knew everything about Twilight to the point that when she got back to her own castle, Starlight was just propped up, reclined on her throne with the face of, what are you gonna do about it?
I don't think
That was
any
badass.
I don't think that they could have overcome Starlight in any in any way other than the, you know, like
The power of
change
friendship.
your heart, yeah, like power of friendship sense. Because if she did want to continue being villainous and they imprisoned her, sent her to Tartarus, or, you know, whatever, she's going to find a way out. Like,
It also
Yeah.
just made things worse at that
Now
point.
the realistic
Yes,
situation here
exactly.
is that villains working together inevitably betray each other. So that like working together, that would suck. But realistically, they'd end up fighting each other more than and leaving an opening for the superheroes to come and save the day.
Come in
Anyway,
and save the day.
the
moving.
question is, oh yeah, go on. Sorry.
So Edgardo J. Cruz says Starlight doesn't want to lead because of what happened in season 5 and is afraid of becoming
Yes.
that again. It took Trixie to convince her that she is capable despite her mistakes.
Freaking Trixie of
Yes.
all ponies, right?
I love that. I love
He's
that.
number
aspect
one
of
girl.
it.
I kind of
Why
want to
has
know
the
what
best
Shady thinks. I kind of want to know what Shady thinks about that.
Motive is a logical fallacy. You can't argue from someone's intentions. You can only argue by their actions. Sunset's actions outweigh Starlight Glimmer's potential intentions.
All right, let's move on quick here because we're nearing the
I do
2
find
hour
it funny
mark.
that it was Starlight. We see Starlight befriending Trixie first, and then much later we see Sunset becoming Trixie's friend.
Yeah, it's also funny how
I just find that funny.
How Twilight took the freaking Trixie being Starlight's friend. She's like, wait a minute.
Bitch.
Honey Drop says, Brony, forgiveness must be earned through. That's the wrong through, Honey Drop. Anyway, forgiveness must be earned through action and proven. You truly show that you regret what you've done. Let's
It's
see here.
repentance, not forgiveness.
Willie's in says, Shim Sham or Glim Glam, neither. Starburst is best. I shall now flee from 2 angry mobs.
Yeah, I mean, I
Oh.
can agree a little bit. I don't mind that.
Yeah,
canon there. I mean,
Heather, Sunburst has
So
those
here's
bold
what I
reds
think
and
of-
oranges that you like so much.
So here's what I think
He's
about
Sunset's
Sunburst.
brothers.
No, listen to this, guys.
Possibly. No. So I love Sunburst. I love his design. He's a nice guy. But I gotta say, if you went in the dictionary and looked up beta male, this man would be there. That is like, I'm not into that alpha omega shit, but that's a beta male.
He's
I
just
mean,
a
Hell, he has
little
such
guy.
bad self-esteem issues. He doesn't brush his hair good. He hides his body because he's clearly ashamed of it, but he wears a wizard's cape. No, the only other person who wears a wizard's cape in this show is Starswirl the Bearded, the guy from 1,000 years ago when fashion didn't even exist yet.
He's
Okay,
a
this
dork.
guy, this shut-in dude, I love him. I do, but that is a
Yep.
beta cuck right there.
He's a dork, and I love him for it.
So let's
He is such a wimp, but I love him.
let's have this debate real quick. Is Sunburst an incel or a?
Yes. He's
is
a
he-
good incel,
Yeah.
though. He's
no,
great.
he's nice.
chill,
He's not an
you know?
incel. He's just beta. He's
Is he,
not a-
is he an incel? No, I gotta finish. Is he an incel or a gamer, and which one is worse?
He's
Ooh,
a gamer.
The incel's worse. No,
He's
I think the
definitely a
incel's
gamer.
worse.
He's definitely
but,
a gamer. I love him.
Yeah, the gamer thing. But he's very into the wizard stuff, kind of like what do you call it? Freaking Magic the Gathering kind of thing. I feel like he'd be that
You
kind of
know-
guy.
Oh yeah,
But I-
no. He
Well,
would
no. Didn't we have an
100%
episode where Starlight tried to play like a Dungeons and Dragons with him, and he wasn't into it because he's like, hey, I'm not
It was a.
I'm not
Oh.
5 anymore.
Oh yeah, that,
Not
that is
it
a
essentially
good
was
point.
shoots
like
and
a
ladders
dragon.
was the game.
It was like shoots and ladders with dragons. She was being weird about it.
Dragon
Okay, Starlight
drop.
got really weird with that
Something like that.
relationship. I didn't even touch that shit in this stream. She got really weird.
I'm a
I
big
was
fan of
uncomfortable.
Sunburst, a freaking Starburst though. I do like the ship.
I'm not really a big shipper, but
yeah.
Well,
fine.
that's
But,
unfortunate because our go ahead, Kun.
basically, yeah, just they're good friends. They're freaking childhood friends and stuff. I think it goes good. But yeah.
friends, guys.
Okay, so and as I said, Mr. Someone, it's unfortunate you're not much of a shipper because our last question is from Paladin Pony 2 who wants to know, I got a big question before we leave. Do you guys ship Starlight and Sunset together? I'm going to say no, we do not ship lesbians in this dojo.
That That's not true. There's plenty of lesbians I'd get behind. Them
Hey,
too, maybe. I don't know.
Hey, look, this is how I see it.
Heather,
if
phrasing?
they really love each other and they consent with each other, then they can love each other.
Okay, but do you ship
I
it,
could
Kun?
get
That's
behind some lesbians.
Teaching of morality.
Kun-
I mean, that's a good question. I'm not really into the lesbian stuff. I can care less about it, but I mean, I see them going together. Put a little orange and yellow with.
I can see a
Purple and-
fling. I can't see a full relationship.
Yeah, I can agree with
I've
that.
seen
There we
people
go.
make
I
Good-
can't
good
see
argument
marriage. I can see them basically being
Sunset
F-buddies.
Sunset
Oh, yes,
would get
queen.
frustrated at how slow Starlight learns things, and that would be the cause of so many fights, which is
Okay, we're
usu-
talking long
like
term. here.
unstable relationships like that are usually Heather's cup of tea.
I want to comment on something you said. I don't
Yeah.
think Starlight is a slow learner exactly. I think she's a slow learner when it comes to people and whatnot, because she's like 100% autistic. But she
Or just
is.
lacks.
I think she's an incredibly fast learner when it comes to like brain stuff. But when it comes to people, yeah, it takes some time.
I don't want to talk to
Give her-
people.
Give her time. She's
All right, hurry up
working
and wrap
good.
this up. I got a stream to start in literally a minute.
Yeah, so
Totally
Yeah.
okay, so we're gonna go down the line. You got 2 sentences to if for closing points and one thing you learned. DJ.
Oh, he said BRB.
Oh, frick.
Oh, that is fascinating.
Yeah,
I do like what DJ had to say.
Kun, one thing you learned tonight.
I've learned that, well, I guess best way to put it for me, I didn't really learn anything. I just learned that Heather just made me like Starlight Glimmer even more. Heather, I appreciate you giving me this insight to just take on Glim Glam and to be best pony, you know?
You're welcome, you hoe bag.
But you know what? You want to go? I'll take this to your stream.
Mr.
Yeah, I got
Someone.
a stream now.
Yeah, Mr.
Okay,
Someone,
I'll
one
take you
thing
there.
one thing you learned tonight.
Dear Princess Celestia. I didn't learn anything. I was right
I
all
am
along.
so-
You know that's my line.
I'm so tired of that Shady.
Starlight is the one that appeals to emotion. Sunset is the one that appeals to logic.
Nice. Heather,
Yeah.
one thing you learned tonight.
I learned that I hate Starlight even more than I did before. I hate you
Hell
all. Good
yeah.
night.
Hell yeah, this is great.
All right,
Great.
guys.
Mission accomplished.
Yep. Mr. Someone, did you have fun on the stream tonight?
Yeah, it was a great time. Thanks
It's great
for
to
having
have
me
you on, sir. I'll be tuning into your podcast as well. So everybody go subscribe
Oh,
to
thank you
Mr.
very
Someone.
much.
And
Yay.
yeah, have a
Go watch
wonderful
Broniest React. It's a cool YouTube series that just started. That
But
me and my
first,
friends
we all
started
got to
doing.
go down to Heather's channel and watch her live stream. She's just gonna hang out and chat with us while she crochets, which is a ton of fun, really. Real quick, Mr. Someone, what kind of topics do you like to talk about? And what kind of video games you like to play? So I know when to invite you back on.
That is an excellent question. See me in my DMs later, I guess.
All right, sounds good. So thanks everybody who supports the channel, especially the $10 and up tiers, such as DJ, Heather, and Shady, who are all with us tonight. There's also Autoknight, Emerald, Senko, Rain, Billy, Alden, Easy Mode, Kanto, Mr. Sonic, Alicia, Calbeck, StarChaser, VentureCorp, Willie's and Icanus, Vulpecula, Raptors Talon, Jimmy, Malkin, and Malcontent. Check out all their links in the description, as well as how you can support the channel and what you get in return. Until then, we'll see you on Heather's channel literally right after I close out of here. Stay safe, God bless, and have a wonderful night. Say good night, everybody.
Let's go, Heather. Let's do this. You want to go?
Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Good night, everybody.
Let's do this.